My brothers messaged, "We've decided you're out of the family business. Clear your desk." I simply said, "All right." The next morning, they couldn't access the company servers. That's when it hit them. The entire business ran on the code I had just taken back. I'm 28, male, and I just got a text from my brothers that would be hilarious if it weren't so ridiculous. After 5 years of building what they now proudly refer to as the family business, they decided they didn't need me anymore and voted me out. Let me give you some context. Back in 2019, my brothers Garrett, who's 35, and Toby, 32, started what they called a logistics consulting firm. That title made it sound impressive, but in reality, they had a name, some fancy business cards, and not a single paying client. They were blowing through our dad's investment faster than a gambling addict at a roulette table. Just 6 months into their venture, they came knocking on my door, desperate. I had just graduated with a degree in computer science and was working remotely for a respectable tech company. They asked me to help them build a simple website. What they really needed was someone to build a fully integrated business operations system from scratch because they were completely overwhelmed by manual tasks they didn't understand. Wanting to support family, I agreed. Over the course of 8 months, working evenings and weekends, I developed everything they needed. A client portal, automated inventory management, algorithms for route optimization, integrated payment systems, and customer data handling. It was a full-stack, tailor-made platform that took a serious toll on my free time. They compensated me with pizza and promises, equity, and a big payday once the company took off. But here's what they never bothered to ask about. I never relinquished the ownership of the software. Every line of code was licensed through my personal LLC. I drafted the agreement myself, ownership remained with me, and I licensed it to the company. They signed it without reading, assuming that because we were family, paperwork didn't really matter. Fast forward 5 years, the company was now earning nearly $3 million annually. My systems were the backbone. Garrett and Toby just shook hands and collected checks while the tech I built kept everything running. They had even hired 2 customer service reps, but I was still the one maintaining and upgrading the software, taking a 20% share as the technical co-founder. Recently, Garrett's wife, Molly, was given a laughable position as operations director. Her job mostly involved rearranging folders and changing the company email fonts. Meanwhile, Toby's girlfriend Kelsey became the social media manager for a B2B logistics firm that didn't even need Instagram. Then yesterday at 4 p.m., I got a text in our group chat. It said, "Hey, we had a partners meeting and voted. You're out. We want to move past just tech. Clear your desk by Friday. We'll send your final check." I replied with a simple, "Okay." Then I did what any rational person would do. I logged into my AWS account and revoked the license key for all the company's software. Everything, the portal, the inventory systems, routing algorithms, payment processing, was now inaccessible. All users saw was a message. License expired. Please contact your software administrator. By 4:17 p.m., Garrett was blowing up my phone. 12 missed calls by 4:30. I ignored them all. What followed was pure chaos. Their largest client had a $400K shipment scheduled the next morning. Without my routing software, they had no clue which drivers were going where. With the inventory system down, they couldn't even locate what needed to be shipped. Garrett showed up at my place at 6 a.m. the next day, hammering on my door like a SWAT raid. I watched from my Ring camera and didn't answer. He yelled for 20 straight minutes about how I was sabotaging the family. My neighbor finally threatened to call the cops, and he left. Not long after, came a threatening email from Toby. "Our lawyer says you've committed corporate sabotage and theft. You have 24 hours to restore access or face legal action." I forwarded that to a lawyer friend, who literally laughed when he saw it. The licensing agreement they signed made everything clear. The license was contingent on my active involvement. They fired me. That voided the deal. End of story. But it didn't end there. Molly, trying to be sneaky, messaged my ex-girlfriend on Facebook asking for dirt on me. She claimed I was mentally unstable, had stolen proprietary tech, and asked if I showed signs of a breakdown while we were dating. My ex screenshotted the whole conversation and sent it to me with the message, "Your family is nuts. Glad you're finally putting your foot down. They also brought in an emergency IT team to rebuild the system, who took one look and quoted $450K and 6 months, minimum. That's when the truth began to sink in. They had never understood the magnitude of what I built. This wasn't plug-and-play software. It was 5 years of custom work, 16 integrated APIs, machine learning algorithms trained on their specific data, and a finely tuned database I optimized for their exact needs. You don't just re-download that. Later, Toby messaged me privately, saying, "Bro, it's getting out of hand. Just turn it back on. We'll work something out." I replied, "I don't work there anymore. You voted." He tried calling, I didn't pick up. The next morning, I woke up to an email from their biggest client, CCing me on a message to Garrett and Toby. They were threatening a breach of contract lawsuit if shipments weren't handled by Monday. That's $2.3 million in business about to vanish. Then I got a call from Dad, the man who initially funded the company. He was livid, but not at me, at them. Apparently, Garrett and Toby had lied and said I was leaving voluntarily. Dad told me, "You built everything. They can't even merge PDFs without you." He wasn't exaggerating. They once called me in the middle of the night for help combining 2 Word documents. Things only spiraled further from there. After losing 3 of their top clients and teetering on the edge of a lawsuit from the biggest one, my brothers did what any completely unreasonable people would do. They tried to break into my apartment. I wish I were joking. At 2 a.m. on Thursday, my Ring doorbell recorded Garrett trying to pick my lock while Toby kept lookout. I watched them live on the feed and called the police immediately. The expression on their faces when the squad car pulled up was priceless. They tried to explain to the officers that this was just a family matter and they had a right to be there. The cops didn't buy it. I pressed charges for attempted breaking and entering. They were released the next morning, and that's when Mallory decided to turn things up another notch. She contacted my current employer and told them I was engaged in corporate espionage, had stolen software, and was using company time to sabotage my brother's business. My boss called me in, clearly concerned. I calmly laid out everything, the signed licensing agreement, the text where my brothers terminated me, the footage of the attempted break-in. His reaction: "Your family sounds exhausting. Take the rest of the week off paid. Handle your business." That moment alone made everything worth it. But the cherry on top came that Friday afternoon when I was served with an emergency court injunction, demanding I restore access to the software. Their lawyer argued I was holding the company hostage and causing irreparable harm. We went to court the very next day. I came armed with my lawyer, every piece of documentation, and a full breakdown of the license terms. Their attorney had the audacity to argue that since it was a family business, normal contracts shouldn't count. The judge, clearly irritated, asked him flat out, "Are you really suggesting that family members are above legal agreements?" My lawyer presented everything: the signed contract, emails confirming their understanding of the terms, and the group text officially firing me. The judge wasn't annoyed with me, he was fed up with them. Then came the twist. My lawyer filed a countersuit on the spot. Breach of contract. They owed me 3 months' worth of overdue licensing fees and $73K in total. Defamation damages? $25K. Thanks to Mallory's false accusations. Legal fees? Another $15K. And don't forget the criminal charges from the attempted break-in. Those were still pending. The judge denied their injunction and fast-tracked our case. "You terminated your relationship with the software owner," he said. "He is under no obligation to continue providing services. This is a direct result of your own actions." Garrett erupted in the courtroom, shouting about how I was ruining the family legacy. The judge threatened him with contempt if he didn't calm down. After the hearing, Kelsey cornered me in the parking lot. "I just had my wisdom teeth removed and I can't work my second job," she said tearfully. "I need this income. Please, can't you help them out? For me?" I stared at her. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you let your boyfriend vote me out." She called me heartless. I reminded her she was making $60K a year to post Instagram pictures for a business that didn't need Instagram. The next morning, I got a call from a competitor. Word had spread fast about my brother's business imploding, and this company wanted to hire me to build them something similar. They offered $200K starting salary and equity. I eventually negotiated up to $220K plus 5% ownership. I accepted. My first task? Build a system to onboard my brother's former clients. We've already signed for. Meanwhile, Garrett and Toby are trying to run the company manually, using Excel and WhatsApp groups. 6 more clients have jumped ship. Their employees all quit after they couldn't process payroll without the systems I'd built. Dad called again, furious. I gave them $500K to start that company. You made it successful. They destroyed it in a week. And he was right. The final nail in the coffin came when my brothers tried one last desperate move. They attempted to sell the business, claiming the software was part of its assets. A potential buyer contacted me for due diligence. I sent him the licensing agreement, showing clearly that they didn't own the software. He immediately backed out of the deal and thanked me for saving him from a legal disaster. When Garrett found out, he sent me a final text. "You're no longer my brother." I replied, "You voted me out a month ago. Guess that covers everything." The lawsuit wrapped up last week. The judge ruled entirely in my favor $73K in unpaid licensing, $25K for defamation, $15K in legal fees. Criminal charges for the break-in are still moving through the system, but their lawyer says it'll likely be probation and fines. During the last hearing, their lawyer gave one final, pathetic argument, that I built the system in bad faith, knowing they'd become dependent on it. The judge stared at him and asked, "Are you seriously suggesting that providing consistent, high-quality service for 5 years constitutes bad faith?" Even their own attorney looked embarrassed. Now here's the most satisfying part. Mallory and Kelsey tried to cry to my mom, saying they were struggling financially and didn't know what else to do. My mom, who had remained neutral until then, told them flatly, "Next time, don't fire the person who built and maintained your entire business." As for me, I've started my new role and I'm thriving. I've already signed multiple former clients from my brother's failed venture. In a strange twist, Toby even applied for a job at my new company, unaware that I work there. My boss asked my opinion on his resume. I told the truth. Toby's a decent salesman but constantly needs technical support and makes reckless decisions. He didn't get an interview. The family relationship is pretty much destroyed, but honestly, it always had cracks. I was just the one pretending they didn't exist. They treated me like a subordinate, like someone they could toss aside once the heavy lifting was done. They believed I was just the computer guy, replaceable. They were wrong. The licensing agreement expires in 2 months. Since the business no longer exists and they've stopped payments, it'll quietly lapse. All that custom code, the algorithms, the integrations, it'll be mine again. I'm even thinking about open sourcing parts of it to help other small businesses who actually respect technical innovation. Always protect your intellectual property. And never underestimate the quiet tech guy. He might just be the one keeping the entire ship afloat. And yes, I sleep very well at night.